Hey guys, happy Easter. I hope everyone is either at their own house or a relative's house and sitting fat and happy, maybe with some ham or cheesy potatoes, my favorites. Finally got out to the farm. I know it's been a little while. Was not ideal conditions, but it was really the only time we had. So we made the best of it. Did a little video. Hope you guys can hear it okay. Sorry if it's a touch annoying, but it was a great time. Had a lot of fun. Much easier than last year. Was able to use a little drill that my buddy made, bit, like a garden bit, and he actually welded it together. So I thought that was really cool, and versus the shovel last year, that made things go by much quicker. Back wasn't totally killing, and I had a buddy join me, so I walked around with the trees, and he had drilled a lot of the holes, and it worked well. So I hope a lot of this makes sense. I also wanted to mention, some people, including Jeff, have talked a little bit about conifers recently, and want to make sure you guys are taking the difference here in the fact where when we talk about a pure stand of conifers with not much else around, that is going to be much different than what we're trying to do and what you're going to see in this video. So when you do have the areas where you're going to have woody shrub tips and browse and the other stuff, we have the diversity. We can certainly have the bedding, and that's going to be one of the main keys. So I just want to make sure that you guys are separating those two facts pretty well. But when we have, whether it's pockets or other areas, you have the conifers, but then you have the woody browse and the other stuff the deer can be eating, especially those first two feedings of the day, can make a huge difference and still provide the deer a great windbreak and things like that. So hope you guys enjoy it.
Hey guys, we are back on the farm. We are going to be putting down our 300 Norway spruce that we talked about. It's a little windy today, so I'm sorry if you can't hear me too well. It's really the only day we could come out. These came in yesterday, so it's important that we get them in the ground as soon as possible. They're still pretty moist. A good buddy I met off of YouTube. I didn't ask him if I could use his name, so I'm not going to mention it, but we were able to do a combined order and save on some shipping, so it's always nice when we can save a buck. They're pretty small, maybe a touch smaller than they were if you saw my last video that we did 200 or 300 last year, but I think they're going to work pretty well. And there's definitely a strategy that we're using when it comes to planting these. And the first one I want to touch on with you guys are these switchgrass pockets. It actually just happens to be happen chance that Jeff talked about this a little bit in his last video, I believe. And you can see here we're in our switchgrass field, and maybe Mike can show you the rest of this field here that you can see all the grass is coming in. And over this way, we have some of these blue flags here and over here, and essentially this area isn't holding any switchgrass. So even though there's going to be some weeds that we can possibly weed whip later, we're going to throw these down in this pocket. We're going to provide the deer some more thermal cover. We're going to have the weeds, maybe some woody browse come up where there's no switchgrass again, so nothing should really be shaded out in this area. And it's going to give deer a nice little area to be able to bed, get thermal cover, get a little bit of food, and also hop out to our food plot that we have probably 50 yards that way. Looks a tad wet right now because we just got a ton of rain, but this is an ideal situation for the deer to be able to bed in these pockets, be able to get the food really close to this first layer of doe bedding. And then also on the wood line way this way, if you can see that, this is where our access comes from. Since we are this far away from the access, we're not going to have to worry about spooking deer. As we come through, the deer are going to be in this pocket, and the switchgrass is going to be 5-6 feet tall after this second year. So that's the first thing we're going to work on. We're going to go ahead and probably do the first 100 to 150, and then I'm going to show you the next area. We're here at another spot. I wanted to show you guys real quick before we get another bundle in some of the woody browse that the deer are hammering. The green is just starting to come up for when they're back here. They're a little closer to bedding. We got to remember that those first two feedings of the day is when they're really hammering the browse before they come to our food plots in that third feeding. And that's just a really nice example of that. Now there's not a ton right here, but there is a couple different spots. We have the center of the property with all the new bedding that we were working on again, and all the browse that came down from the trees we cut. We actually bumped 4 deer. They were all fairly small, so it's kind of promising that the smaller deer made it through that winter. And then as you can see over here, we're not far off at all from the linear food plot that butts up to the woods. And that continues all the way back to where we were in that big holding plot that all these linear plots go to. And then we're gonna really extend these woods that you see back here, extend it, plant a couple different bundles of pines, and again, add that cover towards the food plot and get that first layer of bedding. Okay, we're back a little bit farther into the property. We have the center of the property more this way, and actually the bedding area that you guys saw us working on is tucked not far in past the wood line right there. Over here we have the food plot, the linear trail following and paralleling our border, and past that, of course, we're going to have our access, which is a mowed trail through switchgrass. Here we've actually planted some pines last year, and I showed you a couple. This is this year, of course. And if you come a little farther this way, you can see we have a couple pines from last year. This is a nice one right here. And they've probably grown, they weren't quite as this small when I planted those last year, but if they were 18 inches or so, they've probably grown 6 inches to a foot, which isn't bad. But with the right sunlight, and if you guys take a little more time, maybe you spray chemical beforehand or after, as long as you're really careful and you're using the right ones. These do have the potential to grow up to 3 feet in 1 year, especially in the younger years. After you pass a certain height, might be 40, 50, 60 feet, they will slow down, but you do have a lot of potential. You just got to put in the extra work. Personally, we're taking a little bit more of the approach of planting and praying, I guess you would say. We're doing what we can, but again, we don't live here, so we can't be weed whipping around every few weeks. The main purpose in this area, though, as you can see, I talk about this peninsula quite a bit and refer to this large oak tree. And besides probably felling or even hinge cutting potentially a few of these trees to extend the wood line, the other thing we're doing is planting these conifers to again bring out the woods, create more first layer of bedding so we have more buck bedding in the back, and bring these does as close to the food plot for the most part as possible. The other thing this is really doing is somewhat edge feathering. And I know many people have their different definitions for edge feathering, but for us, it is essentially a gradual change, not just hinge cutting the edges of fields, but a gradual change from the food plot to grasses and shrubs and briars to maybe conifers, and then to the wood line being this peninsula. And that's really going to give us a nice edge feather all the way throughout. There's tons of trails running through here, so we think it's going to work very well. Hopefully things don't get too thick for us, but we're gonna get these planted. I'll come back another week and I will weed whip around as many as I can possibly find. But after that, we're gonna be getting ready to do some spraying and get the food plots going for the start of the summer planting. So hope you guys took away something with this and you're getting out there using the spring in the best way you possibly can. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and we will see you guys next time.